Hello everyone, Nubkeks here. Shving. It's time for a crash course on the Sage. This is the brand new healing job added to Final Fantasy XIV Endwalker just yesterday with the Endwalker early access. So it's a pretty intimidating job on first glance, as you'll see here, but I'm going to break it down for you, explain how everything works, and get you really well set up so that you can go into your leveling dungeons, your roulettes, or Bozja, wherever it is you're going to go, and know exactly what you're doing and be well set up to heal your team. Because I mean, one of the most stressful things in an MMO is, going into a dungeon on a new healer, you don't quite know what everything does, and then people start dying, and you start freaking out, and everything falls apart very quickly. So let's try to avoid that, and let's set things up well here. Right, Sage. There's quite a lot of different aspects sort of stacked together with Sage. Let's break them down one by one. The first thing I want to look at is Cardia. Cardia is just a buff you're going to put on to your main tank. Pretty much is the way you're going to use it. So you put this on, it always gives you Cardia, and then it gives your target, your selected target, Cardion. And what this does is whenever we use an offensive spell, so one of our damage dealing spells, it will give them a small little 130 potency heal as well. So for example, with Dosis, which are basic damage spell here, you can see additional effect, restores HP to your targets under the effects of Cardian by 130. So yeah, you'll just pop this on your tank, and it's a little bit of trickle healing for you and your tank that's just sort of coming in incidentally. There's not too much you're going to do to play around it. It's just some nice extra bonus healing. But yeah, it just helps you do more damage without having to stop and cast healing spells directly. So that's pretty nice. Right, let's look at our two basic heal, because you actually, if I just spam an ability here, one thing I want you to notice, look how few abilities are actually on the GCD. You have a ton of OGCDs as the Sage, right? Tons of them. Let's break down the GCD spells first. Obviously, we have Ajero, our raise spell. We've got Repose, and we've got Asuna. So your roll skills, they're there. That's fine. Let's look at these other ones, though. So, first of all, let's look at our two basic heals, and let's talk about this part of the job gauge, Eucrasia, and what the hell's going on with that. So, first basic heal is Diagnosis. Your single target casted heal. 400 cure potency, pretty weak, low mana cost as well. This is kind of the equivalent of Cure 1 from White Mage, so it's pretty bad. You don't want to cast this very often. And then for AoE, we've got Prognosis, which is a 300 potency AoE cure to everyone within 15 yards. Right, so that's Prognosis. There are two basic heals, Prognosis and Diagnosis. Now, we have a spell without a cooldown called Eucrasia, which actually upgrades both of these to a shield version as well. So, Diagnosis goes from a 400 mana cost, casted 400 potency cure. If we pop our Eucrasia, it upgrades it to Eucrasian Diagnosis. It's actually still a 300 cure potency heal, but it's now instant cast, does cost a good bit more mana at 900, but it also, on top of this, gives your target a shield equal to 125% of the healing that you do. So, oh God, instead you give them like a 300 potency cure and like a 360 potency shield. I don't know, something like that. Maths, gosh, should have thought about that. If you crit heal them as well, we'll actually give them a second shield called Differential Diagnosis, which is just like a little bonus. You're not really going to play around that too much. So if we pop this off, there it goes, Eucrasian Diagnosis. And now there's the shield on the target, which is pretty cool, actually. And again, the nice thing about this is it is instant cast. So, like, in a dungeon, for example, going between pulls, you can absolutely pop your Eucrasia and throw that Eucrasian Diagnosis shield on the tank. In fact, this is very important to do because of the second part, the bottom part here of our job gauge, which is Adder's Sting. And Adder's Sting, the only way to generate stacks of Adder's Sting is whenever the shield from that single target shield, whenever it gets consumed, whenever it's used up, it does its job, it gives you one stack of Adder Sting, and you can have up to 3, and that's basically how that works, which enables one of our AoE attacks, which we'll come to in just a second. So that's your single target heal. AoE heal does the same thing. It starts off as just a basic AoE heal. Whenever we Eucrasia it turns into Eucrasian Prognosis. Actually, this goes down a lot in the cure. It goes from a 300 cure down to a 100 cure, but it does give a really big shield. It gives you a 230% value shield on top of that. The mana cost only slightly goes up, but it also makes it instant cast as well. So it's pretty nice, right? That you can pop like this instant decent shield on your entire team while you're on the move, which is pretty cool. And yeah, the way you basically want to use these is you would really rather not cast these direct heals much if possible. They're more sort of emergency healing. You'd rather use your OGCDs and stuff to top people up. And you'll basically always go to the Eucrasian version first. So like with your tank, you'll throw on the Eucrasian Diagnosis, give them the heal and the shield. Then if they really need more single target healing and you've run out of OGCDs, then you could spam Diagnosis on them if you need to. Or again, with your party, if they're going to be taking damage, you'll throw on the Eucrasian Prognosis. And then if you really need to do more AoE healing and you've got no cooldowns, then you could just start spamming Prognosis. I think actually spamming Prognosis is something you might do a little bit more than spamming Diagnosis, which you'd really rather avoid. You'd rather just heal by doing damage and trickle healing with Cardia and OGCDs onto your tank. You'd really rather not cast Diagnosis, I think, at all. Then, I've already mentioned it, but Dosis is our single target damage, our main single target filler, just 300 potency damage, and pops that Cardian effect, of course, like all these damage spells will. And we can upgrade that. It's the final Eucrasian ability, which turns it into an instant cast dot, right? 30-second dot, Eucrasian Dosis. And yeah, it's really that simple, right? It's really that simple. So again, in single target situations, you want to make sure that that dot is on. Put that dot on. It's going to do a lot more potency. And then just go back to spamming your Dosis for single target damage. And that's how simple it is. We have 3 then AoE damage abilities as well. In fact, let me show you something fun as we go in here, which is Icarus. 45-second cooldown, 25-yard range gap closer. You can jump to an enemy or a party member, which is cool. So woo, you jump in, you're what are these things even called? What are they even called? I don't know what they're called. Sage's Arms. They got some funny name. But yeah, it just jumps you in and looks badass. But for AoE, we have 3 abilities. The basic one, your filler one, is Dyscrasia, which is very simply, it just does 160 potency damage in an AoE around you. Dyscrasia. There we go. Very simple. Then we've got 2 charges of Phlegma with a 45-second charge time, which is that, but much stronger. Much stronger. So you'll do 400 potency damage to your target and 30% less to all remaining enemies. So Phlegma absolutely smacks. Phlegma is your big damage AoE spell, or one of your biggest damage AoE spells, going around those charges. So making sure to use that when you can. Then finally, Toxicon. Toxicon is the only thing that you cast with Adder Sting. And Adder Sting, remember, is what we generate whenever our single target shield gets consumed. And Toxicon has no mana cost, so that's nice. It does have a 25-yard range and still a 5-yard radius, and it does 240 potency to the first enemy and 50% less to all remaining enemies. It's instant cast as well, and yeah, that's basically it. So you know, for going into a pull in a dungeon, you'll pre-shield your tank with your Eucrasian Diagnosis. When that shield's broken, you'll get a Toxicon cast. You could stack these up to 3, and you can do them. And yeah, you actually end up casting this quite a bit. But that is it's a better. Generally better, I'd say, spell than Dyscrasia. It's doing slightly less damage in AoE, I guess, than Dyscrasia, but it does have the advantage of being ranged, and it does have the advantage as well of not having a mana cost, which is pretty nice. Yeah, so there you go. That's your AoE damage. And again, as well, every single time you cast one of these AoE spells, every single one, it does trigger that Cardian heal as well. Don't forget that for that extra trickle healing. Cool. Right, let's look at, I guess, the other part of our job gauge would be the best place to go next, and that's the Adder's Gall. It's these blue things, and they are essentially like White Mage Lilies. So if I just fire off an ability here really fast, you'll see you can have up to 3 charges. One nice thing is it generates out of combat, unlike White Mage Lilies, which are in combat. 20-second recharge only as well, compared to the White Mage 30 seconds. Sage is like, I can do that, but better. So yeah, you get this back quite frequently, and you have 4 different abilities that you can use your Adder's Gall points on. The first one, I've been casting it here, is Druachol. This is the only one without a cooldown, so this is the spammable one. This is what you're going to dump it on when you've used the better cooldown abilities. It's a 600 potency OGCD heal. That's basically what it is. 600 potency OGCD heal, and it also gives you back 7% of your MP. That's what all of these Adder's Gall abilities do. Every single one gives you back 7% MP, so making sure to keep always like a stack rolling. It's very short cooldown. Keeping a stack rolling, keeping your mana coming back is quite nice. So that's Druachol. We have an upgraded version then. This is the better single target version called Torachol, which has a 45-second cooldown. It does a 700 potency heal and also gives your target 10% damage reduction for 15 seconds. So this is just a better version. And you would always use this basically over Druidchol whenever you have it off. Again, preferably on your tank, so that damage reduction is reducing a lot of damage. For AoE, then, we have 2 abilities. The first one is ffxiv, which does have a 30-second cooldown, and this is simply a 400 potency AoE heal to everyone within 15 yards. So this is a nice OGCD heal. Pretty good. Simple. It's very, very straightforward. Then you also have Cardia, which also has a 30-second cooldown and gives 10% damage reduction to you and your party for 15 seconds. This does get upgraded at 78 to also do a regen. But again, starting out on Sage, you're not going to have the regen. But Cardia, simply enough, 10% damage reduction. It doesn't stack the damage reduction with the single target one, but that's fine. It doesn't really make much difference for you. You're going to use this one to protect your team, right? So if AoE damage is coming in, Cardia on to protect your whole team, reduce the AoE damage coming in, and then you're going to be popping ffxiv to top them up. That's basically the way it works. Pretty straightforward, really. And that's it. That's your Adderskull gauge. Yeah, they're OGCDs, and they're actually pretty powerful heals. So yeah, use them frequently, use them a lot, keep it rolling. They're a great way to heal up your team. We have then a few more OGCDs as well. Actually, let me touch on one that's a little bit sort of out there first, and then we'll come back to like your core sort of tank protecting ones. The first one is Zoe. So Zoe's a 2-minute cooldown, and you do get this at 56. Increase the healing magic potency of your next healing spell by 50%. This lasts for 30 seconds. Well, it only lasts for one spell, but the buff will be on for 30 seconds. So I think that the way you want to use this is simply you want to use it on your AoE heal. Your Eucrasian AoE heal, I think, basically is the way to go. So one thing to note, healing spell, this doesn't include abilities, right? So ffxiv is an ability. It does not use up Zoe, doesn't use it up. Spells have to be your casted ones, the ones with on the GCD, right? And it actually says spell in the tooltip. So it's basically prognosis, or it's diagnosis is what it is. I think that's almost it. And again, I would, because the Eucrasian versions are better, I would always combo Zoe with Eucrasia. I think Eucrasian Prognosis is probably the best way to use this. It will give you 50% more healing on your Eucrasian Prognosis, and therefore 50% more shielding. So it will just really up that shield that you can put on your whole team and give them a good chunk of extra protection for those AoE hits. I think that's the way to use it. So that's Zoe. Another kind of wacky one. Actually, let's go to the wacky one first, and then we'll go to the core, core OGCDs that you're going to be using quite a bit. Pepsis. This one's a bit weird. 30-second cooldown. So it actually removes the shielding that you've put on with Diagnosis or Prognosis. It removes that for just a big heal, right? Or not even a big heal, but a decent heal. 450 for your single target shield and 350 for your AoE shield. I think the way you basically want to use this is... if you pop an AoE shield and it gets... people still need healing afterwards. Let's say they're on half health. You pop an AoE shield on them. The boss does an AoE attack and people still have like a small bit of the shield remaining. That's a really good time to pop Pepsis and just be like, okay, rip off that tiny little shield for a decent chunky AoE heal. I think is the main way that you want to use this. But yeah, it's definitely a bit more funky. It's a bit more complex. And I don't blame you if you're not going to use it very much when you first pick up Sage. I feel like that's more of a mastering the Sage thing. Right then, let's look at a couple of these other abilities. First up, Soteria. This is going to be just a bit of extra trickle healing for you and your tank. This increases the effect of Cardian by 50% for 15 seconds. It has a 90-second cooldown. So simply the way I'm going to use this frequently. Don't be holding on to this. This is not like a big emergency OGCD. No. This is just more trickle healing for my tank. In other words, it's like my tank's going to do a pretty big pull in a dungeon. Let me pop Soteria as we go into damaging that so that I can go into that pull. I can start dumping Toxicon. I can start blasting out that Phlegma or spamming my Dyscrasia and just get some extra trickle healing on the tank. Just letting me do more AoE damage, spend more time casting AoE abilities and healing with that trickle of Cardian healing. As opposed to having to stop and actually directly heal the tank. That's the sort of the way that I look at this one. So use it frequently, and yeah, just be able to do more deeps. Then Haima is your other option. This is much more powerful. They get this at level 70. This is a 2-minute cooldown. This gives your target, typically the tank, a 300 potency shield. It also gives them 5 stacks of Heimatima, I don't know, Heimaichit, whatever. It gives them 5 stacks of a refresh. Essentially, whenever the shield is broken, it will put the shield back on, using up one of those stacks. This doesn't last super long. It's only 15 seconds that you have this buff. So this is like when your tank is going to be taking really heavy damage, give them the Heima shield, and then, yeah, the shield gets broken, refresh, 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 for a total of 1800 potency overall. So it's a very, very solid tank healing cooldown to really stabilize your tank when they're in danger. And then finally there's Krasis, or Krasis, which is a 1 minute cooldown. Increases HP recovery via healing actions for a party member or self by 20%, lasts for 10 seconds. So again, this is basically, you put it on your tank, and your tank's going to get 20% more healing from healing actions. I think it will also affect their own healing actions, and also in a raid or trial situation, the other healer's healing actions on the tank too. And yeah, again, I think this might be a little bit, I'm not 100% sure. Someone who's more expert on the intricacies could let me know. I'm not sure if this affects how it works with abilities. Is it just spells, or is it abilities? I don't actually know. It's one of those weird things, right? Where there's some weird behind the scenes stuff happening, but simple enough in how you use it. It's only a minute cooldown. Just use this frequently. Whenever your tank is taking big damage and needs big heals, pop Krasis on them, so that when you start hitting them with like your single target heals, it makes your single target heal better, which therefore makes your single target shield better, and you just get more value out of it. So yeah, when you want to do some direct single target healing, pop this on, use it frequently, help your tank stay alive. Don't get that till 86 though. And yeah, then again, a couple of these other abilities that come in at higher levels then. You've got Panheima, which is basically your Heima shield, but for your entire party. 2 minute cooldown, 200 potency heal, 200 potency shield, and again, 5 stacks for 15 seconds. Every time the shield's used up, consumes a stack to reapply the shield. So that's a ton of shielding. That's super good. 1,200 potency worth of shields on your entire group, your entire party, for 15 seconds. That's super good. So again, heavy raid damage coming in. Pop Panheima, keep people alive. What else do we have? We have Holos, 2 minute cooldown. 300 potency heal to everyone in 15 yards, and gives 10% damage reduction. Pretty straightforward. Again, big AoE damage is coming in. Pop your Holos OGCD here to heal everyone and give damage reduction. Straightforward. Rizomata is a 90-second cooldown, gives you 1 stack of Adder's Gall, so restores that. So this kind of just a nice little bit of extra healing. I think this would be particularly good if, oh shit, there's big AoE damage coming in, and I've actually used up most of my Adder's Gall. I can restore a stack of Adder's Gall, and then I can get my Kerachol, my AoE damage reduction on, and then also get out my Ixachol, my AoE heal, after the damage comes through for some nice value. But yeah, I think this is the sort of thing you're just gonna, again, it's fairly low impact, but just use it frequently. Also effectively gives you back a bit of extra mana, because that's 7% mana restore whenever you spend an Adder's Gall. And, then the final, the capstone ability, how could I forget, is Numa. This is your level 90 ability. This has a short cast time and a 2 minute cooldown. And this fires the giant laser beam. Fires a giant laser beam, which does 330 potency in a line in front of you to the first enemy, 40% less for all remaining enemies. It also does a big 600 potency heal to everyone within 20 yalms of you. Very nice. And it also will trigger Cardian for a little bit of extra trickle healing benefit too. But yeah, Numa, pretty straightforward. It's an AoE nuke, which is also, more importantly though, it's actually a big 600 potency AoE heal, which, you know, AoE heals is something that you do somewhat lack as the Sage. But yeah, so that's basically all of, that's all the abilities. That's it. I think we've covered absolutely everything in terms of what you're going to do. Let me actually flip over here and let me just hit play on some dungeon footage, and I can talk you through stuff here. Actually bring this up, let me mute the game, so we can just look at this. But yeah, so that's the Sage. So basically what you're going to do, as we're running through this, you'll see as we're going, again, the quality might be slightly lower because it's recorded in 1080p, but that's okay. But yeah, as you can see, I'm popping that Eucrasian stuff. I put the Eucrasian diagnosis, I put my shield single target on the tank. So we actually got a stack of Adder Sting, which you can see over here. And then I'm popping my Eucrasian thing to put my dot on those targets, because there's only 3 of them. Jumping in then, using my Numa, my AoE ability, spamming my AoEs as we go. And yeah, it's basically this. It's sort of the rough gist of it. So we're popping some of those AoE. There's our Toxicon coming through. And yeah, we're just trying to keep our shields on our tank. topping up people there. Oh, there's actually one ability I forgot to mention. Let me go back before you sort of see this and how we're going. You can see again those little heals trickling in. I forgot one ability, how could I, which is Physis 2. Derp. This is actually really nice. 1 minute cooldown, which just gives everyone a regen and also 10% more healing from healing actions for 10 seconds. So this is really nice. Physis 2. Who knows what happened to Physis 1? That's in your spellbook at some lower level, I guess. But yeah, Physis 2, again, pretty straightforward. This is when people have taken a lot of damage. You actually need to heal them up. Pop Physis 2 on, and then when you're doing more of your heals, like your Prognosis and probably Ixochol, etc., it will just do some more extra healing, as well as the nice regen. So it's a lot of AoE healing to help top people up. So that's Physis 2. I forgot to mention it there. I just saw it as we're going through. But yeah, that's basically it. So again, yeah, using your Eucrasia to debuff things. Really nice thing for Sage. It feels really good. You'll notice here, feels very active in dungeons, because as you're running between packs, you are recharging your Adder's Gall, unlike the White Mage, so that's constantly coming back. You can use your Eucrasia, which makes everything instant cast, so you could put an instant cast shield on your entire party going into new pull. Put your Diagnosis shield on the tank, and again, when that gets broken, you're going to get one of your Toxicons. You have a ton of, actually, then you've got your Toxicon for a ranged AoE instant cast. You've got your Dyscrasia for the melee instant cast AoE. You're spamming those using your Numa stacks as well. And yeah, it flows very well. Guys, let me know, what do you think of the Sage? I've been really impressed by it. I feel like it flows really, really well. You've got a ton of OGCDs, which are very satisfying, and the mana economy goes very well too. So you can see again here, going into another pull, we're going to Dyscrasia on Eucrasia on the tank. We're going to jump in, and we're going to start using some of our abilities here. We're going to like Numa. We're going to start spending some Toxicons there as well, which is just a little bit of healing for the tank, which is kind of nice. Popping the shield back on the tank, so that as we're moving and dropping those Toxicons, we're just doing some extra damage. Like, look at this. It's so much fun. You're just like flying through, doing as little healing as possible as like goal of the day. And yeah, that sort of should give you sort of a rough gist of that. I'd say, again, final tip as we're going through, you'll probably be noticing how often we are casting that Eucrasia, because, you know, we want to be keeping that Eucrasian Diagnosis on the tank quite frequently to get more Adder Stings for more Toxicons. Because you're going to be casting that stuff so often, I would highly, highly recommend then that when we look at the game, right, that you put your Eucrasia on a convenient button. You're going to be pressing this a lot. You want it to be comfortable. You want to be able to be like flowing through on like just, you know, dotting people as you go, right? Putting dots on them. Okay, I want to put my instant cast shield on the tank. Okay, I'm jumping in. Gonna be doing some AoEs. Oh, I'm gonna pop my AoE heal on everyone. Here we go. Do an OGCD. You get the idea. But there you go, guys. That's Sage. Let me know what you think. Thank you for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.